Hope you guys are ready for another episode of Double D's in your face. That's right.
Okay, on to the next question.
There's another question?
There's a lot more. This one's from Mike.
See, I'm just warming up here, old Donnie boy.
Holy shit.
You go ahead there.
And this one is for Dan.
Oh, well, of course. Don, the guy, go take a nap there, Quiddy Poo there. Okay,
yeah, I'm going to.
But this is going to get into something that we need to talk about after this. So let's hear this one from Mike Zipper.
Mike Zipper. Uh-oh.
My question is for Dan. In your fight with Royce Gracie, it looked like to me if you had about another minute, Royce would have passed out if you had his face smashed on the cage any longer. My question, how close do you think you were? Royce rarely taps. You guys are studs. Man, love the channel. Wrestling fan. Mike, thank you.
Well, Mike, I appreciate you asking the question. I mean, this is something that I've done on numerous types of interviews because a lot of people will say, after they watch the match, you were on top of them for, whatever, this 14, 15, almost 16 minutes, and you look like you were in control. But it really wasn't until several minutes into the fight that I ever threw my very first punch at Royce. And if you look at this again, this is back during the tournament format where you had 8 men and you had to do 3 fights in a night. If you watched my first 2 fights, I did not throw any punches whatsoever. I basically, I just used amateur wrestling moves, turned them a little bit illegal, and made people tap. In my the third match with Royce that evening, I did take him down with a double leg. He pulled guard, but it's kind of like going, I wasn't concerned about that. And then you got to realize I only trained for 5 days, an hour and a half a day in a professional wrestling ring with Al Snow, professional wrestling trainer and competitor Al Snow, down at his Body Slammers gym. I mean, literally, that'd be one of these days that we'll end up getting Al Snow on there because I want him to actually tell some of the stories verbatim about to what was like at the training camp and what he's got going there, still on the professional wrestling level. But it was actually, I wish I had footage from that training because there was nothing. I mean, like today you could Google anything. You can Google who your opponent is, and you'll see different clips of him training, and you might see some previous matches. Back then, there was no Googling of anything. You basically, you're making it up as you go. Matter of fact, just to find a gym to train in, there were no, at that time, the only cage that was owned by the UFC, and that was it. People were just trying to be as creative as possible as to how to train. So, but again.
But a lot of gyms went from Kung Fu or karate to MMA overnight.
And automatically they were a black belt or a master in it somehow. Yes, yeah. I laugh a great deal about a lot of that there because, I mean, you and I, we've seen an awful lot over our careers. But, I'll just simply say that people always ask, they said, you tapped. And then they all were all trying to say, and I tell people, oh, yes, I did. I tapped. And they're like going, and then they're like, well, you tapped because Royce had you at a triangle. I go, well, if that's what you think. And they're like, oh, well, what do you mean? I said, yeah. I go, yes, I did tap. And they're like, well, why did you tap? I said, I tapped that night because I was unwilling to do what I had to do to another man. You got to realize, at that point, I only trained for 5 days. But I've already been an amateur wrestler for 26 years. 26 rules and regulations that you can't punch, you can't do this, you can't do that. And so literally I always tell people I struggled more with my conscience than I ever did with an opponent. I always tell people.
Mine never slowed me down.
Well, we'll get, but I always tell people, you just see the transition from UFC number 4, training 5 days, an hour and a half in a professional wrestling gym. And then UFC number 5, I took out 32 days of my life. I left my family behind in Michigan, Coldwater, Michigan. I traveled out to Arizona. I stayed by myself. I trained. A lot of my stuff was by myself, but I was at Grand Canyon University, and I was going through very unique workouts left and right, but a lot of my stuff was I ate by myself. I trained by myself. I had a black and white TV and a VCR, and I only had 2 UFC tapes because there's only 2 to be looked from, and I watched them over each night. And I always tell people, look at the transformation of a Dan Severn from UFC number 4 to UFC number 5, where I destroyed 3 men at record time. So, again, there's a difference between that. I go, in my final few years of competition, I was trying to get one more match right down the line. I was looking for one more match with a Mark Coleman, Ken Shamrock, Royce Gracie. If that could have been my last 3 matches of my career, boom, I would have been done at that point in time. And I put it out, and I even told some people when I finally do retire, I would still keep that on the table, but it only depends on how far and how bad of a shape I've gotten at that point when I ever come back again. So, but so I'll leave it at that. Towards I go, sure, I tapped, but did I tap because someone beat me? No.
Okay, and that's going to lead us into the next question. A lot of people have been commenting, and I'm not going to give any names. There's so many of them, but on our last Q&A, Don, you stated that Dan would have destroyed Rickson Gracie, and we've got a lot of people who basically are just saying Dan couldn't beat him the first time, and supposedly Rickson is so much better than his brother, even though that's just hearsay. So what do you think? What do you think about that?
Deal.
What do you think about that, Don?
Well, here I came into UFC. Y'all have seen my career. If you saw my older brother Craig, he'd destroy me like that. He'd have whooped everybody's ass. He was phenomenal. He whooped my ass every day for years when we were growing up. And he could whoop my ass now. But you all just think about that now, okay? I mean, you never seen him fight, just like Rickson, but there he is. So think about this. I could make that statement, and now you're going to be scratching your ass because you'll say, wait a second. Don did this, but his brother did this to him, and boy, I mean, he's going to be the greatest fighter in the world. How come we've never seen him?
Well, I mean, again, just to put my 2 cents in there, a lot of people can speculate on all kinds of stuff. To me, it's like going, speculate all you want. I mean, all it really comes down to is like the reality is there was never a match between Rickson and myself. You know, I think I watched a couple of different matches that he did have, and to me, they were questionable at best at times. So it's kind of going, I've got no axe to grind with Rickson. I don't think I've ever even met the guy.
I haven't either.
I mean, do I have an axe to grind with Royce? Sure I have. Because he's an arrogant ass, and he shouldn't be. There you go. How you do that? I do that with a smile on my face. Because smiling faces don't leave traces of the evil that lurks within. But
Children remember that.
but I always tell people it's kind of like, because most people, Brandon, most people that when they meet me, they're like, "Oh, Dad, you're such an easygoing, nice guy. How is that you're able to turn that on?" I mean, Dad, but you're the same way. You're an easygoing for stuff like that. But there's Don Frye outside of competition. Then there's Don Frye who walk into that cage or walks onto that mat or whatever you do at that point in time. It's time to take care of business. Kind of like, there's no more, of laughs and giggles, stuff like this. It's kind of going, this is your ass on the line to go out there.
Right.
So I always tell people, I'm an easygoing person, stuff like that. Come time for competition, I shake your hand before, I shake your hand after. No hard feelings for what happens in between the two shakes.
Well, we do have a comment here. John M. brings up a good point. He says, Sakuraba destroyed 4 Gracies with catch wrestling, including Royce. Rickson wouldn't risk being exposed by Sakuraba.
I've told this story once before. I'll tell it again. When I was first going over to Japan for the UWFI organization, Sakuraba was a green boy at the time. Was a green boy. A green boy is one of those guys that he's basically like a janitor in the gym.
A young boy.
Yes. He is. He's scrubbing down the mats. He's washing dishes. He's preparing the food because they actually have the old-fashioned dojo where there's a dojo. It's a training facility, but then you have a meal. When your training's all done, you get a meal and stuff like that before you head right back out. So I remember each time I kept coming back that I'd come back and then all of a sudden he'd have a big old cauliflower ear. I'd come back again, he'd have a big old goose egg over his eyeball and stuff like that. I mean, just each time I come back, it's like a new thumpy that he took it in the process right there. So when he finally started rising up and becoming more and more famous, I kept thinking, good for you. You just you paid your dues, and now look where you're at. So I'm very happy for him.
Absolutely.
All right, on to the next question. This is for both of you. If you two fought, it's from Ration. Question for Dan and Don. If you two fought in the UFC today, in your primes, do you think you would be able to get the championship belts with today's competition? Love you guys, and you two have helped me become a better man. I thank you for that. Stay toxic.
I don't. Okay, explain that question right now. Is he talking about us fighting each other?
No.
Okay.
They're just saying if you were fighting in the UFC today, and you were
Absolutely
younger and in your primes, do you think you would be able to get the belts?
Absolutely.
Well, I'd like to put in the fact that they never saw me in my prime, because at 37, when I walked out there, UFC never saw me in my prime. I always tell people that 1990, I think December 93 was when it first began, and that was just shortly into 1994 when I did UFC number 4. And I always tell people that I was in my prime from 1984 to 1986. So think about that, 1984 to 1986. And now I'm in 1994, a decade later. I'm already a decade past my prime. But for those 2 years, I was powered by hate, because I wouldn't be here today. Had things all gone for me the way they should have gone, I would have been the Olympic gold medalist. I would have retired in 1984. Boom. But I didn't. Got kind of screwed over. Next couple of years, I was powered by hate. I had to perform my own exorcisms at the expense of other people's bodies, and I hurt people. And I finished out some people's careers, probably in the process. And, so if you would have faced me during that 2-year time period, even Mr. Godzilla over here himself would have had a tough time.
All right, on to the next one. This one's from Scott James. He has a question for Don. Since Dan is double dipping on us turds on another autobiography, when are we going to see one done on the Predator? Have you ever been in talks for it?
I don't understand that question. Double dipping on us turds? Is that what he said? Say that again there, Brad.
Run it by me again.
Since Dan is double dipping on us turds on another autobiography, I think he's referring to the fact that you're going to do a second book.
Oh.
When are we going to see one done on the Predator? Have you ever been in talks for it? And he says you can let Dan get all our cash.
Well, can I interrupt you real quick?
All right. The magic word, cash. He's sweating, people. He's sweating.
And I'm not Johnny either. Okay. No, I mean I think Don would have a very interesting biography if he put one together. I know it would be a great book. It probably would be a great miniseries. I think that these last 2 years, there's all kinds of miniseries that have started to take place through the movie series, through the movies, and I think that that you would actually make a great little series, because it's just simply to say that an hour and a half to 2 hours you could tell your story. No way. So to me, to put together like a series, I think there's a number of both men and women that have been involved in this NHB to MMA period, that there should be more series about them, and to show where they were at in their life when this opportunity came to them, and then what it did for them, and where are they at today.
Right. It would be a very good Netflix series, yeah. Like Yellowstone. I love Yellowstone.
All right, next question. This is from Bushido Baker. And he's got...
I just refer to him as Double B.
There you go. He actually asks a lot of questions, and they're usually pretty good. This he has a question for both of you there, so I'll do Dan's first.
Go take a nap there, Don.
Dan, reading your book as well as seeing a number of interviews where you talk about the incident with the Owen Hart pile driver and how understandably upset you were, did you ever make amends with Owen prior to his death?
No, I don't think I ever really saw him after that. Again, I know that's probably the shortest answer you ever heard from me, but at the same token, it's kind of going. It's a shame what happened to Owen, how his death all occurred and stuff like that. But it's kind of like going, I was legitimately upset at that point? Sure I was, because I could have been confined to a wheelchair for the rest of my life. I could have been paralyzed from the neck down. That's not what I want to have had happen.
The next part of the question here for Don. Don, I recall an interview you had talking about Wanderlei Silva, saying he had a reputation of being a mean son of a bitch. But when you met him, you guys ended up sharing a piece of gum claiming how nice he was. Did you or do you have any other stories of your interactions with the axe murderer? And Don, he also says, P.S. I think having a photo of Don's Bulldog Quinn on a T-shirt is a great marketing move to sell merchandise for the podcast.
I happen to have a T-shirt with my Bulldog Quinn on it. It was a gift from Brandon and Tony for Christmas. Yes, it's a beautiful shirt. Beautiful shirt. Thank you guys very much.
Now, getting back to the question now, okay?
Yes, sir. Getting reprimanded for taking a long time.
No. Bust your chops. Quinn is a star in their own right.
All right, what was the question, partner?
Back to the axe murderer. He wanted to know if you had any other stories or interactions with him.
Yeah, we were having breakfast there. We had breakfast. They put us all at the Tokyo Hilton, which is always just blew my mind that any organization would put fighters in the same hotel, You
would think that they'd always keep them separated.
You would think so, yes. And especially the shootbox team versus, the other Brazilians teams. But one morning at breakfast, I'm sitting there with Steve Owen, my corner man, my sensei, and we're eating breakfast. And next thing you know, Vanley's standing next to me, and he's nose to nose with one of the other Brazilians from the other camp, and they're about to go at it right there, about to ruin my breakfast, man. I'll tell you, I was not happy about it.
Yeah, again, there's sometimes promotions just they don't understand. You really should have people at two different hotels, especially if it's professional wrestling. That's one category. But when you go look at the fight game, if you want to really
protect the innocent,
detour possibilities. You want them to fight hard at the night of your contest, but keep them out of two different hotels, maybe, because you might get that match a little premature.
Right.
All right, next question. This one's from Francisco Linares, and he wants to know, he wonders if you guys would like to have Kurt Angle on, given he was a legit wrestler and WWF
Yeah, I'd love
star.
to. I'd love to. I'm a big fan of Kurt's. I think he was a great wrestler and a great athlete. I'd love to have Kurt in there.
Yeah, especially when we went over, when you look at breaking his neck and stuff like that, too. It's still going on to come back to do things. So, he'd be a great inspiration. Plus, he's amateur wrestler, freestyle wrestler, and professional wrestler on top of all that. So, you bet.
Yeah, I broke my neck twice, but I didn't keep competing in the Olympics like he did. He was actively competing with a broken neck. When I broke mine, I took a little bit of time off to heal it. Thank you for watching another episode of Dan and Don's Fans Q&A. You better like, subscribe, and share, or I'm going to come to your house.